Well, hello everybody, welcome to the video from Legend of Elements. Today we're hitting a new milestone and I once again come back around with a new build that I found out is a big upgrade from what I already had, right? So of course I'm playing a swordsman, pretty much like 99% of people playing this game for whatever reason, and we are just here gonna be talking a little bit about what the build that I'm using right now is like, right? So if you are yourself wondering, is this the best build that I have? Well, I'm here to give you some light and a little bit of a tip of what to be aiming for, right? So as always, as I first said in one of the first videos I did about the game, you always have a very decent idea of what's going to be good in this game just by going over here to the loadouts and going for the recommended setups, right? It's already a very decent start, and that is pretty much what we're going to be going through, right? As it is, the game is the one that gives you the tips towards it, it's usually for a very good reason, right? You can try and switch around and go for some of the daily trending builds, which sometimes will be better than others, but for the most part you will find out that people are just gonna be using the same damn build that is in the recommended loadout, right? So again, it's a very good reason for that, because they're already going for a decent balanced build which has some synergies that's to it, and you don't really have to reinvent the wheel when the game is already doing it for you. So in this case, we are really just gonna be going with that one. It's pretty damn simple, right? For the first time when I switched to this, I didn't really have many levels on the skills, and that is a thing to take into account, and that is when you first go to another milestone, right? For example, to go from adept to master, you will then need to be unlocking some of the master's skills and level them up a little bit until they're really up in par to what we already had before, right? Some of the skills you will not even have, and some of them will just be so low level that they will actually be a little bit of a downgrade for the most part, right? Now, in the case of Master, that wasn't the case. It was actually quite a big upgrade from Adept, but then once you got to Ascendant, that was not the case as much, right? I really did have to put some more upgrades into the base recommended skills for that to really shine, and that was really the case. I just switched to the recommended build once again, and it wasn't just because I really just felt like it. I was actually looking through the top players in the game. You can just go ahead and run through the rankings, and then it kind of just pointed me to the fact that they are all using these things, right? Now, the fact that how do you even get to the top players? Find out who the top players are just by going to your upgrade panel, hitting on this button right here, and of course you can see your Hall of Fame, which you will be very promptly just have the I don't know, you can go over here and try to see, oh, who is this person? I'm just gonna be checking her out. But anyways, the easiest way of just finding out who the top players are in your server cluster is by going to the ranking over here at the top, and you will be having the breakdown of those who just have been the longest amount of time in the Hall of Fame. Doesn't mean they are the strongest, it just means they've been here for the longest amount of time, right? So you can just go ahead right here, check them out. Now, for the most part, they are all just going to be hiding their loadout because they are really edgy and really cool, but some of them will be actually showing you what they have. Now, it doesn't mean that they are the strongest or they have the best build, it just means that they have put a lot of money and time into the game, and that's pretty much just about it. Of course, at the end of the day, it's a gacha, and it's just a matter of who pays the most, right? That is all that matters at the end of the day. Now, there will be some of them that actually show you their builds, and again, some of them are going to be using the default loadout, right? Now, I did play around with some of these builds, right? I checked out some players who were running certain builds, and then I switched to something else, and you might find that the game rewards you for switching to the default build. It just gives you more power overall, even though it might not actually be the one that gives you the most DPS overall, right? They might give you a lot of AoE DPS, for example, but maybe not the best single target DPS, and for the most part, you're really looking for the single target for the bossing. So over here, yeah, this is default build. I switched to it, and let me just real quick give you a little bit of a breakdown of what you can do with the default build, right? Not even taking into account the spirits right here. I did use this setup, and I actually switched from something else I was using before, and it was an upgrade to switch to this, right? I got the monkey myself over here from the event a little while back. I didn't put any money into it, but I did get him at least just as a copy, although he's in really very high upgrade level right here. As you can see, his promotional level is pretty bad. But anyways, we'll be doing some work on him eventually, but this is a setup that I ended up having. I found that it was a big upgrade, in fact. So let me just go back to the numbers, right? So over here, you can see that I did have a top DPS, and I did this top DPS in the latest, in the simulation. I didn't do it in the boss, where it's actually decently different because of many factors. But anyways, you can just go to the room over here for the DPS test, and right now I'm running the default build, the recommended one by the game, and excuse that. Try to get it out of the way. There we go. So I'm just running the default recommended build, and you're going to be seeing that it's quite honestly a lot worse than the build that I was running before. In fact, the overall DPS is pretty much half. It's not even quite half. It's like kind of there, but it's just about half of the output that I can get on a single target boss. In fact, it's lower than half at this point, right? Just by purely single targeting this boss, it is quite lackluster, right? So you can get yourself, you can pretty much even double your DPS if you actually use a decent setup, right? Again, this is the numbers that I was looking at before. Once it is loaded out, I did score this much DPS in one of the setups, right? So we're going to be rebuilding the setup that I was running before, right? So first of all, the only thing that I switched over here was just switching to this one over here, if I'm not mistaken, right? This is what I was running before. Now, all of these other skills, I think I did switch away from the ones that I'm running over here, right? So let me just real quick rebuild what I had, right? This is the setup that I found out from some other player, and in fact, pretty much all the skills that I switched into were supposed to be a downgrade to what I was running before, right? From the recommended build. They all just provided me with less amount of power. In total, I didn't really move downwards too much, but I did a little bit, right? I did move downwards in total power a little bit, which usually isn't really a good tell, right? You might think, oh, well, that's maybe not the best idea to go for that, right? So let's just go back and run the test again, and let me just go ahead and see, of course, what we're going to be aiming towards, right? So the idea, of course, would be to be getting to those 200 million, or rather billion, and there you go. We pretty much are reaching those, right? It's a very bursty build, which will be going up in power and then going really far down really soon right after, right? So there we go. We're going to be getting our cooldowns back, and once that happens, we got a massive burst of damage, and then it goes down a little bit again. But of course, we are getting average damage here, right? We have DPS, we have overall damage per second, and as that keeps resetting, we are pretty much hitting 250 million, right? I think, in fact, obviously, I got a massive spike in power after I did level up. I think I did this test before I switched myself to the rank that I'm currently at, right? So I went from Ascendant 2 to Ascendant 3, so obviously that was a big upgrade, but you could see, like, I did both tests with the default build on Ascendant 3, and then with the one that I switched to on Ascendant 3, and you could see that the difference was massive. It was pretty much about 100 million difference, even more, in total damage per second. It wasn't just the burst, it was the total amount of damage per second, right? So, yep, there we go. That is a massive upgrade of a build. Now, you can find something like that just by looking around and trying to see what other players are doing, or obviously by testing yourself if you just want to be going around and switching what you got. But you could see that most whales are probably just going to be going with whatever the game tells them that is the best, and it gives you the most power, which is of course going to be the recommended build, because it's the easiest way to just go around, hit use, and that is going to be it. But that doesn't really mean that it's the best. It's not the best combination for a certain type of damage. And it might also be synergizing as well with certain kinds of spirits if you're running, right? So obviously the ones that I'm running over here, they do seem to be working pretty damn well. Now, of course, you gotta be reading through what they all do, what their skills are. They're just like plain damage if they got some sort of buffing, stuff like that, right? Their damage windows and all that. So it all takes a little bit of learning just to make sure you're synergizing decently, right? Of course, we're running over here with the Downweaver, pretty much a big buff to pretty much all that we have. But anyways, yeah, we are really hitting big numbers with this build, and I'm sure you're going to be able to implement some of that to yourself into your own builds. Now, you, of course, will be getting different numbers if you're doing, for example, something like this, where when you're clearing the stages, you will be having to do some AoE, right? So these numbers will vary. It's not going to be full DPS, or rather single target DPS. It's going to be taking a little bit of AoE, but yeah, these numbers do eventually be averaging all the way up. If you do take a little while just clearing the boss, those numbers are going to be going up. But anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Now, there's been going on a lot of events back and forth with the game, and I'm sure you guys have been checking them out. Of course, you did use some of you guys have been using my Aptoide code, and I really encourage you to do so if you're going to be participating in pretty much anything that is going on in the game. Of course, you can find out all the events here, of course, in the preview section when things are going to be coming back around and stuff like that. But yeah, there is a lot of stuff pretty cool. Like, for example, the one that we got here for the monkey, the limited time event, where we can now we were able to get the monkey for a limited time, and now it's gone, right? So if you're going to be getting some more of those, which they will be eventually, of course, we do find over here in the affinity tab that we do have 2 more of these guys coming very soon with new events. Eventually, we're going to be able to get some of these guys as well. So yeah, if you're going to be spending spending any money, which of course you do kind of need to if you really want to be aiming for the best things, you will be wanting to do so through Aptoide, right? So just go ahead and check that out anytime you're buying anything within Legend of Elements or pretty much any other game you play through Aptoide. You're going to be able to get yourself extra bonuses. It can go from 10% of your money to extra 35% of whatever you are spending, and just whenever you do accumulate enough bonuses, you can buy things in the games, not just Legend of Elements, but again, any game you play through Aptoide for free, just using your bonus. You don't actually have to use your real money. And if you go ahead and use my code, you're going to be able to get an extra 5% bonus for the get-go, as well as just be able to, well, get a little bit more of those cashbacks to just be able to earn more and more bonuses and keep on speeding up, unlocking higher amounts of bonuses overall. And you do help me out as well as a content creator to keep on pumping these videos. But yeah, guys, hopefully that was a big upgrade for you guys, just as it was for me. My build really spiked up, and I do feel a little bit more up in the curve, although I'm still, of course, very far behind. There is some massive whales in these games, guys, so yeah, it's really hard to keep up unless you're putting some money into it. But anyways, yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye, see you, everybody.